Welcome to a new episode of the Creative Industry Insight podcast. I'm your host, Bobby. Today, we welcome Re-Recording Mixer Ron Bartlett, who joins us to talk about their work on Tron Ares. Ron will talk us through striking the right balance with the dialogue and music in the film. Please be warned that there are heavy spoilers in this episode. Now let's jump into the conversation with Ron. Hi, Ron. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
We're here to talk about Tron Ares that's recently come out in theaters. How have you found the reaction to the film?
A lot of friends and people have had some very favorable responses and love the look of it. They Nine Inch Nails fans, and so it's been very favorable.
Cool. I think as well when you get friends and family, what's it called? Giving you a feedback as well. It's like sometimes like your work's kind of expanding because there's always like I feel like there's always like a different sort of pat on the back when they sort of start watching it and comment on it as well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, obviously friends and family are going, "Oh, that's great! Oh, and it sounded amazing." You're like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I did hear through a friend of mine who his dentist saw it and thought it sounded amazing. So I think that's the only fair review I've gotten that's unbiased.
But again, listen, I think as well, if ordinary people are going out to the cinema, hopefully, I say that as a dentist could be a cinephile, but you know, somebody like that's going out to the cinemas is like is a good sign, especially like nowadays, which is how quick
Oh,
films are in cinema, then VOD, and then on Netflix, and then all of that jazz.
but it's so crazy. Like it comes out, it's out for 2 weeks, if that, and if it doesn't, make $200 billion, like, oh, it's a flop. I'm like, it's not a flop. It just, it's getting going. People haven't gone out yet, and it's so quick now to judge on everything, every movie. And I'm not talking about Tron, just any film. It's so brutal. Uh, I would hope it'd be the other way, where people would support film and give it more time, or give it some better reviews to help it out, to help our business.
I think as well as like it's crazy how it used to be like certain films would be in the cinema for like 9 months
Yeah,
before they
right?
even considered putting on VHS or DVD or uh,
Yeah.
whatever other
You'd
whatever
have
else out there.
first run houses and then a second run house, and they would get, the double feature or whatever. It would have much more lasting legs that way, and reach more people, through the time. But now it's super quick, and then it's streaming and out. It's like, wow, brutal.
Yeah, but then I guess in a way people can then see it more accessibly and not accept it becomes more accessible for people, should I say, but still it's like it's that communal experience of being in cinema where you do have the best screen, the best sort of speakers as well, um like that's what they should be aiming for. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Tron and the sound of it. But to go back to the beginning of the project, how did it come about for you, and what made you want to take it on?
I got a call from one of the producers and asked if I was interested, and I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. I love the franchise. I remember seeing the original. I think I was in high school or something, and loved it. The video game came out. It was a big deal when I was a kid, and then having seen Legacy as well, and then it's such an odd project because each film, it's like 15, 20 years in between, and then you do another one. I'm like, wow. I mean, it's kind of a challenge in itself, having that much time in between. But it allows you to bring something fresh and new to it. So, I was all in for sure.
I think as well, like as you mentioning, like having such a big time gap, there's probably like so much probably change in terms of like technology in our world compared to the Tron world, where sounds can evolve and you could probably play around a bit more. Um, because when I was doing my research at the beginning, you've done a lot of sci-fi films in the past, so you probably have like a whole catalogue of sounds in your library and that you can pull from. But how would you say it's different to working on this sort of sci-fi project compared to something like Blade Runner or Dune, for example?
Well, interestingly enough, with Blade Runner, it also had that throwback feel at times to the original, which is done in '82, I believe. So it's kind of similar in that way, where you have older sounds, newer sounds, but they, have a nod back to the original like that. Where Dune is its own thing. It's a very different project, and it's way in the future. It's like 10,000 years in the future. Uh, Regardless of the number, it's a very different thing when you're referencing the older films. And so this one had a lot of really cool nods to the original, and there's even a scene in it, without spoiling it, that it goes back to the '80s like that, with the original, sounds and things that happen. Try not to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but there's a lot of vintage things in it, if you will, that remind you of those times. The computers, all that kind of stuff. So it was really fun to allow that, get that into the film as a nice texture and a vibe that reminds you, it links it as a whole project from all three films.
When you have something like that where there is a nod to original films, and so let's go back to the first answer. Sorry, the first part is where with I guess with something like Blade Runner as well, having those sort of previous film and even video games itself, you can sort of call back to. And here in Tron Ares, we have that callback as well, with going back towards the 80s. How does someone like yourself work with sound in that way? Because I can imagine like you have to be faithful to what came before, but then also you don't really want to lose like your creative part into it, and you kind of want to add your style as well.
Well, the fun part to be clear, I mixed the dialogue and the music in the film. Addison Teague and Tormod Ringus and Bård Ingebrigtsen were all designers and supervisors on the film. They came up with all these sounds and did all of that work. So I just wanted to make sure, there's a shout out to them who did that work. I was the recipient where I get to mix it, which is great. But they painstakingly went through and designed all this using elements from the original or certain sounds from like the video game or other things to, little Easter eggs, if you will, throughout. But of course, they're adding new stuff. There's new things. There's different lasers, different, all sorts of things. Even the light cycles are different. They're upgraded quite a bit. So, every sound is new, but it might have some cool element from the original in certain places where it would stand out. And you go, I know that. That's from, just give you a little nod to it. And it's cool, like you know, uh, tying it into the old one, but only in certain moments. You don't do it all the time. And this one, it's very new and has a lot of great visual effects in it. And of course, we got Nine Inch Nails doing the music. It's a very new approach to it, and bring our own style to the game.
When you're, 'cause I just want to sort of go to what you were saying as well before about you're working with the dialogue and music side of stuff. I think there's like a big topic and debate right now about how we can't actually hear dialogue as much. I feel like on this film, that's not really the case, because you do have Nine Inch Nails music, which can be, there is a certain sound to it and a certain feel, which I personally love. I know other people might not. And how do you go about striking the right balance, but then also making sure that when you're doing the mixing, it's going to be correct, that if somebody's watching at home or on their journey to work, for example?
That's one of the most common questions I get about how come when I'm at home I can't hear this and that. I'm like, and I use the captions or what, the subtitles and this and that, and I kind of cringe, like, oh, that's terrible that you would have to do that. I'm pretty confident that if you have the right equipment at home that's tuned properly, you'll never have to worry about that on a film that I've mixed, because I really, really try my best to keep the dialogue clear, no matter what's happening, sound effects or music, that dialogue is king and that you hear it and you follow the story through the actors. I think that's super important. And I hope that everyone else feels the same way. I can't control a lot of that because once it leaves my hands, it goes through different processes. It's, broadcast, it's sent through other things that I don't know about, algorithms, whatnot. But if it gets to your house and you don't have the right gear set up, or you have, walls that reflect a lot, or there's so many issues going on from when it leaves my hands to gets to your ears. That's the tough part, and I can't control that, but I will say that I do my utmost best to make sure that you get the right mix and you can hear everything, and it's certainly in the theater for sure. And I would love it if we would all go to the theater and watch it where it's meant to be, obviously. But that's the thing, is I do a separate mix. All of us do home theater mixes, so it's not like you get the one that's in the theater and that's it. We do a special mix, special mastering it to optimize to play on different setups at home.
Again, it's interesting to hear and figure out, but as in working everybody with like their mixes and how people set up at home, and how people kind of moan, complain, and put subtitles on. I know that I have subtitles on now, which is maybe it's just more of the fact that my hearing's gone down a little bit, so I do need to make sure I catch everything that's being said, or so I don't end up watching the film like twice in the night because I miss something, or you might miss something important that's being presented on screen.
Well, you also, like, you're sitting at home and you're comfortable, and maybe you have a little kid right now. So if you're turning it down for your kids and it's much lower, and people are doing stuff in the house that's distracting, there's a ton of reasons in a home environment that are very different than when you go to a theater. And the theater plays at a certain level, which is supposed to be what we mixed it at. A lot of times the theater will turn it down as well because the next door one's playing something really loud and they turn that down. So there's some adjustments that go on in a theater as well. But at home, there's so many issues that, where do you start?
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of like yourself as well, because when you're in the soundstage, mixing and putting everything together, your setup's probably quite different to like a theater, I would say, right? In terms of just like you might not have as many speakers, or the speaker quality might be slightly different to certain cinemas as well.
I mean, when I'm mixing the film or when I'm at home, like,
Mixing the film, sorry.
no, mixing the film, it's like a laboratory. It's awesome. It's the best setup ever. And then we make sure that it translates to other dub stages and also the academy. And that's a standard that we all painstakingly keep up every year. We have once a year, we all get together at the academy and play some of the other films and talk about the sound and the setup and how it matches, and going forward, so that we set a standard. And then every film that's judged for Oscars and all that is judged the same way with the same setup. We go that far. So theaters are supposed to keep their tuning up through Dolby and other people that tune their rooms and play it at 85 dB and the whole thing. So it's a set level. IMAX does a really good job at that. They play everything at 85, and we do a separate master for them as well. So there is a lot of thought and effort that goes into keeping it very standard and that we all have the same playing field.
Interesting. That's cool to hear as well, and sort of figure out, because there probably is a big science to it as well, with how people are viewing it and watching it and listening to it. But going back to the film itself, and going with dialogue, when you're mixing dialogue and having actors project it, what would you say is probably like the most difficult part when playing around with that? Because sometimes there might be certain actors who are not necessarily trained in a way to project their voice, or they might be a bit too low. How do you go about getting the levels correct within the film?
That's a challenging thing because there's many things on the set that change the quality. There could be fans if it's, windy, whatever. There could be outside. In Dune, it was the sand and the wind, and it was very challenging to get some of that going. There's a lot of organic things that happen while it's being shot, whether it's lighting or, man-made stuff, or is it just the elements, like you're standing next to the ocean, and it can be horrendous because it's like very loud, and if an actor is down here and whispering, you're not going to hear him at all, so it's a very difficult thing just physically shooting in those areas. Hopefully your production mixer does a great job and has lav mics and other, a couple of different boom mics, and they've really gone to town and done the best they can. And then when I get it, I have to run it through some types of noise reduction and raising the level, EQing it to match, because every angle is different. Actor to actor is different. And then when they go shoot their ADR, where they loop the line and they redo a line for whatever reason, could be a sound on the set. It could be they want to change the take or change a joke, whatever it is. I have to match that studio dry recording with what happens on the set. So it can be all over the place, and generally is. But my job is to make it all even and sound natural and go, wow, what are you talking about? It sounds great.
And then when you have something like that, because you probably get it like at its rawest form if they're doing ADR, where it's probably quite clean, to then inserting it into a scene. How do you go about doing something like that, and how difficult is it when it's an ADR line rather than something that would have been said on set on the day, or if they've had to change a line or two?
It could be as easy as just putting it up and maybe put a little reverb on it, go like, oh, that sounds great, and it matches perfect. Rarely, but it does happen sometimes. But if you get a really good ADR mixer, he's miking and maybe EQing, doing stuff that they can do, matching what type of mic was used. Excuse me, what type of mic was used on the set. Tricks like that that make it sound, and boom it like it would be, and they matching the angles to get the recording as close as possible. So when I get it, I don't have to do a lot of extra stuff to make it match. But it can be extremely difficult where actor wasn't in the same mood, or he or she was doing some sort of affected thing with their voice and they couldn't quite get back into the character, or they're just hate ADR. A lot of them don't like it, to be honest, and I can see why. I mean, it's very difficult and to match in what you did and do something better. Some of them really love it and they get a chance to redo something. They're like, great, let's do it, but it's more on the side of most actors don't like doing ADR. Most directors don't like using ADR. So, it's a tall challenge to make it seamless, and people don't notice it at all. Like, what do you mean there's ADR in there? It's like, oh, well, half that scene is reshot. That's my goal, is that it sounds so natural you can't tell. And so we do there's so many tricks, and it really depends on the recording, the actor, the performance of it, which mic I use to, we put fill, like just the room tone. Every room has a sound to it, and it could be that you're outside and it's wind, or it could be inside, it's really quiet, but you definitely hear a certain room feel to it. Maybe your fridge is humming or your TV's on, or whatever's going on in the environment. We match that and fill it, because when you chop out a piece, also it's out and comes back like that, and you have to fill that and make it smooth. and then you maybe have to put different reverbs in whatever small room it is, or maybe it's in a church. You have to match all these things, and the tone with the EQ of like, oh, it's not as bright, it's too dull, there's a mid-range thing in it. It's endless, and it goes on, and you're trying to really hammer this line and get it to go play smoothly in there. We steal syllables, we steal like consonants like T's or S's and things, and put them into words that weren't there. It's a very detailed, stitched, thing that happens to make those fit properly. And it's a lot more detailed and more difficult than people realize.
I think as well, if you're taking like syllables, words, or just like letters, I'm just picturing like a Frankenstein monster I've seen where they just all just like putting together to make it sound like this is like the correct way, and then it also needs to be matching whatever the like room temp is as well. And I guess with somewhere like Tron, where you have different worlds, where you can there must be a way of being able to play it around, because you have somebody like Jared Leto's character who's an AI bot basically jumping in between the real world and the Tron world, and game world, should I say, as well. Like his voice would probably sound different, and it's also the way that can't remember the actor's name now, but is the guy who creates him, the way that he communicates with him in the other world with the voice and a distortion, which must have been quite cool to be playing around with, because you could probably take it in a way that's like, let's make it really high pitched and sound like he's like a cartoon character, or we make it really deep and he could be quite sinister and overpowering, but if we make it too deep, then it just sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, funny you should mention that particular one, because that's actually half my voice for Dillinger, is the big red head that comes out the computer. I've done this in a few other shows where it needs to be very deep. I have a very low voice when I want to. it lends to that. So I'm in SAG. I'm a SAG voice actor as well, but I don't do that every day. My main job is Re-Recording Mixer, but in certain scenes or certain movies like Prometheus, I'm the engineer, things like that, to where you needed a deep voice and we're replacing it. I did that with Dillinger's voice, because that actor has a fairly high-pitched voice, not super high, but he's not deep like that. And to be big and menacing and sinister, like you just said, you want to go down and be big and fat, right? So I pitched him down as far as I could without it sounding odd. Like you can't go that far with people. It starts to sound really artificial and not happening. So I matched exactly syllable by syllable and said everything exactly how he did, and I double tracked myself. So there's 2 tracks of me, and I'm in Atmos, and I put sub on mine and did all the stuff. So I'm supporting him. The actor's in the lead. You hear him clearly, but I'm in there just supporting the size and the attitude of it, if you will, so to make him more sinister and big and more impressive. It was a lot of fun. I love doing that kind of stuff. It's like the voice in Dune, same thing.
That's pretty cool. So hopefully they gave you a good deal on your rider, and in your dressing room you had all that you needed. If not, I could be your agent, no problem, we could get that sorted. But hearing that, does that, when you have something like that, because I feel like it's a little bit of a cheat code, right? Because you're there, you do the voice, and then you can play around with a bit more, and if you say, actually that syllable or that word doesn't sound correct, I'll do it again, and then play around with it again. I feel like, yeah, you could probably have a lot of fun with it as well.
Oh yeah, and I do a lot of dialogue work in my studio at home, and it's tuned by Dolby. It's like a full Atmos setup at home, and I've done pre-dubs, pre-mixes, like temp mixes. I've done dialogue mixing. I even mixed a whole documentary on Gustavo Dudamel in my room. But you can do a lot of work in a smaller room and bring it to a bigger room. which is what I did. I was doing all the dialogue remixing before we go into the final with all the elements, music and sound effects. I go through all the dialogue first on my own, and sound effects guys are doing their thing. Then we meet up in the final. So during that time, I got the mic out and was recording myself and then re-editing it to match him exactly. And then, like you said, I would go through and play it and see, oh, maybe I'm a little too this or that, the inflection's off, and I would change, just one word. I could just record it myself right there. I don't need to go to a stage, do all this, hire whoever. It was just me, so I could do it right away. I did the same thing on Dune for the voice through that same process.
That's so cool. And now it's like you could watch it in like a different light now. In a way, you can also feel like it's you just know that it's you, and it's like, again, movie magic. Not, if do you know what? Actually, that would be a really good pub quiz question. Is that who does the voice in Tron Ares of the character? Is it is it the actor, or is it someone else? And then people won't know.
To be clear, it is Dillinger. It is that actor, and he's prominently heard. It's all him. I'm only supporting. I'm doing this low end thing. Yes, I am speaking the same thing he did, and I perform the same way. But I just want to be clear. I'm not trying to take over anybody's acting.
No. That's not. That's not what I meant.
Yeah, and he's being heard. So we did this as an effect. So that's what it's for.
Yes, sorry, that is what I meant, as in to have it as an effect, and to add that to the question. Apologies. I'm curious to know as well. It's like, I know we touched upon a little bit, but with soundtrack and composing, Nine Inch Nails have done this soundtrack for it. Obviously, with music guys, they know a lot about sound and so on and so forth. But what I'm really curious to know about is, what are the discussions like between the sort of the sound team and then the composers? Because I can imagine that each person wants their moment, but then also you don't want everybody's moment to overshadow somebody else's, and also what's happening on the screen. And what are their conversations like with composers, and how do you go about working with them to make sure that everybody gets a moment to shine, but then also one sound doesn't overpower the other?
Good question. It varies quite a bit on film to film and composer to composer. Typically, we're not that close, but we will talk and discuss certain things in the film, and we end up getting their score after it's mixed down by their engineer, and then I mix it in with everything else, and we're trying to balance everything together. On this one, we had a lot of conversations. We had some pre-mixes that we did. We went to town and really tried to find exactly what Trent and Atticus really wanted in the stylistic way that they wanted to approach this film, and say, look, we were trying to do something a little different here. Indulge us. Here's examples of what they even made a few mixes themselves and said, here's our ideas. We went into Disney and mixed just with me and them, and mixed a couple of the big scenes. Of course, they were going on tour, so we try to get all this done ahead of time to allow them to be on tour and then come back. So time-wise, it was a little tricky, but we spent some good time, before the mix, getting their music mixed exactly how they like it. And I sat with with both of them, but mainly with Atticus. I went through every single cue with Atticus and made sure it was exactly the way they wanted it. And it was the plan from the beginning to make this more of a music forward kind of mix, where it's a character in the film. It's a very stylistic thing. And that was the decision, from the get-go. So, and it's not like, oh, it's a music video. It's not that. Because they made a lot of comments along the way, like, hey, music's great here and it's playing really well, but in that moment, I'd love to hear more of that bus coming in, or when he skids around the corner, maybe we have something in the way, or they were very amicable to sound effects at times in those moments, and it was refreshing to hear that instead of just saying, "Oh, I just want my music louder." You do get a lot of that from a lot of guys, but they were very much into the style of the whole film. So it was a different way to look at it that way. And it did take a minute for me to think outside the box and change the way I would normally do things. And but I really was interested in what they were after. And my goal is to make everybody happy, because it's a service industry is what we're doing, although it's very creative. And I said, do you want me to bring my angle in on this as well? And they said, absolutely. And we've worked together really well and came up with stuff. And I would do some things they really liked, and then they wanted their thing. I like this definitely. And can we change this up? There was a lot of back and forth, and we worked together very closely and came up with a really cool track.
Cool. That sounds, again, is I like I like hearing about the collaboration process and how, as you mentioning, like not making it too music video-y, which I can imagine is kind of could be something that could happen in a film like this, because it's so the music. Sorry, go on.
It would be so easy to do that. You just like crank the music, turn off all the sound effects, and okay. And then when a cue's over, oh, now we have dialogue, and we tell the story a little bit. And then the music's back in. It's not that. This is way, way more sophisticated and way more layered, and just a really cool combination of all of them. It has a style, yes, and there are moments, yes, where it's music up and it's really telling the story, and it's got a vibe and a character that you can't deny. And that's part of the cool thing with Nine Inch Nails with both those guys, is they have their sound, and they're executive producers on the film. I mean, they're as much a part of it as all the other producers. So everyone was on the same page. This isn't like someone tried to force a style or a thing. This was the idea from the get-go, which was pretty cool. It's a little bit of a different take, and hopefully people really enjoyed that. I know there's a lot of Nine Inch Nails fans out there who would love it, because they did really well. And they came back from their tour, and they had a break in the middle, and then we played the whole film, and they were really digging it. We did a few things, obviously, but I thought it turned out great, and they were happy. And so yeah, it was a very fun collaboration.
When you do have something like that, where you have composers who are also execs on a film, does that affect anything in the way of how you guys work, or is it just a case of it's just another title for them in granted to them by the studio?
I can't speak to their deal or what that means with them, but for me, it was like a little added, like, hey, these guys are coming at the film, like a part of the story. They're not just scoring the emotional parts, if you will. Like a lot of times in a score, you'll get is there to carry the emotion of the film and get you where you need to go, and it does its job very well. This is a little more than that, where it's a style and a vibe and part of the character and the DNA of this film. So it didn't surprise me at all that they were coming at it from that level with a different title. I mean, titles are titles, but to me, it's like, what did you invest in telling the story? And they were in it from day one, and talking to Joachim, the director, and everybody was in on it, and they brought something very cool that you don't normally get.
Okay, I guess it's also it's like another added conversation, and then also the way that they can sort of maybe help you guys out in what you're doing in the conversations and mixing side of things. And again, it must be quite incredible to be able to work with them, and especially now that they're sort of coming into their own as composers as well, rather than something like Nine Inch Nails. I know they are as Nine Inch Nails, but as in
As composers,
yeah, as composers, should I say? Yeah,
they've won 2 Oscars and been nominated. But I mean, they know what they're doing. Obviously, they have a style of their own. which is really cool. And you don't always get that from composers. Of course, someone like Hans or other computer, they definitely have their style. This is what they do. And they have their style, which is very cool, a little different on, the vibe and the electronic side of things, but it's still unique to them, and which is a great thing that you have a stamp and a style of where how you want to approach something. And this film in particular was very much in the DNA of it, that it's like this is just as much a character as Ares himself is driving the film. So it's very important.
Yeah, and I guess as well with when it comes to your sound with dialogue, you want to match whatever the sound that they're producing, but you want the dialogue to maybe match the music and the tone of what is being created at the same time, if it's an action beat or an emotional beat as well.
Yeah, the entire thing is a story, and then you can't get around that. Your job is to tell a story. So my job with sound is to embellish that and take Yoakum's ideas and take, Nine Inch Nails, take the producer's ideas and really bring, this Tron world to life with all of that and embellish this story and push it as far as we can to make you, the audience, go, wow, that's cool. It really comes down to that. Do I sit back and do I watch the movie and listen to it and go, man, that sounded, it looked great. I love the story. That's the goal, right? So whatever you do to get that done, that's the important thing. And if I'm doing my job right, I'm listening to all those people, putting, my backlog of experience of other films into that and raising the bar. So that's our goal.
And how do you go about, would you say, raising the bar or setting the bar and then also raising it at the same time?
Well, that's the tricky part, right? If you're a painter and you keep painting and you do a nice portrait and you go, that could have been better, and you get rid of it and you do another one, you do that painting, different person, you're like, oh, that's cool, I got that trick. And oh, but that, the hair could have been better next. And as you go through life and you have a career and you've added up all these things, that's the whole point with art. Because every movie I try to learn something, do something better, do something a little cool, come up with a new idea, like, oh, how do we do this? Like on Dune with the voice, like, oh, that could have been anything. And we sat for months putting in ideas and sending them to Denis and saying, do you like this? Do you like that? There was three of us. We were all doing uh the voice, trying to make a different style, different thing. And he's like, no, no, no. I'm like, it just wasn't working. Right at the very end, we came up with it, the one that we used, and everyone loved it. But if we hadn't failed all those times and came back with a new idea and kept trying and be creative and try to do different things, that's how you raise the bar. Is you learn by your mistakes and you get better, and then when you do grab one, you hold on to it and that becomes part of your palette. And every time you do that, like I had done these other voices, gave me the idea to do this voice for this movie. And that's one element. Obviously it's not the whole movie, but it's one thing that ups the bar. It's like, ooh, that's cool. And when everybody heard it, the execs, everybody, it's like, whoa, oh man, that was impressive, because they weren't used to it. They were used to just a one mono track of the regular actor, and now it's something different, and then it grew on them. They're like, we love this. It's got a cool attitude. But you do that, 1,000 times a day with other things. Like, is it the kick drum? Is it the guitar sounds? Is it some cool synth track that we've, leaned in on for some reason? Is it all the dialogue processing? I mean, we went through all the dialogue in the film. When you're on the grid, you have a different sound. You have more mechanical, little bit, different process computer like sound to your voice, no matter who you are when you're on the grid. When you're out of the grid and you're in normal life, it's all gone and you're in normal environments. So the whole point was to take Ares, who's, master control, if you will, and he's like got a lot of processing. As he goes, he becomes more human, and we start to back it off a little bit. And then when he's out in the real world, he sounds normal, and you're like, wow, is this guy a human now? You know, that's part of the trick we did with sound is, you know, going into the story and pushing it in that direction. And that's one of the many things is talking about upping the bar is to go through a story and do something with sound that elevates the story and brings you to a certain point where you're like, man, that sounds cool.
And I guess as well, like having the ability to work in like sci-fi and sort of play around with that sound, like have that modern day sound, but then also play around with it a bit more so that you can create something that's different, futuristic, and
Yeah, sci-fi is
like,
great. I mean, I love the genre. Obviously, I used to read a lot, you know, Kurt Vonnegut and others, you know, Bradbury and stuff in school, and so I loved sci-fi before I even got into film. But you know, seeing Star Wars growing up, all of that, it's just awesome. So I'm super happy when I get to work on something like that, like a Dune or a Blade Runner or this, you know, Tron. They're all of them. I love the genre. So I'm a student of it. I'm into it. So I'm trying to make my own stamp and push things and like, Ron mixed that, you know, like that's what you want, that you've added something to this whole thing that brings you to another level. And that's what's satisfying is when people are like, man, I really like what you did with this, or, you know, that's the cool part.
and again as well as you're saying, like you want people to be like, yeah, Ron mixed this, and then it gives you a moment to be like, yep, that was me.
Most people aren't going to know. Trust me. I have no illusions of grandeur there. Yeah.
But then also that's maybe a good thing because then if it goes wrong, it'll be like, yeah, is that Ron again?
Oh yeah, you don't want that. That guy.
So yeah, exactly. So I guess two sides to the coin. Just to wrap up the episode, what was your favorite scene to work on?
Wow. Boy, there's a bunch. I mean, obviously, I love the big red head, you know, of Dillinger, and because I'm doing the voice to it, and it was very fun and creative. Is it my favorite scene? Probably not, because there's so many other cool parts. I love the light cycle chase. I love the second half of it. There's two chases, right? And the second half was really fun and what we did with there. And I'm trying not to spoil anything, but especially towards the end, if you will, there's a great scene, you know, in the light skimmer where they're trying to get out of the grid, and they're on that kind of whatever, you know, snowmobile type thing. You know, it's a high-tech machine going over digital water, if you will. That scene was really cool. But the one just before that, when they're falling, that was really fun to, you know, pan a lot of stuff. And Tormod, our effects mixer, did a great job with that. And it was really fun with them because it was great because Joachim's Norwegian, Tormod and Bård are all Norwegian. So they have their way of communicating, but we just had the best time on the stage, laughing and trying to understand each other sometimes and joking about that. But we really got in there and tried to collaborate a lot with each other about what we thought, what's cool, throw in ideas. And Addison Teague, from Skywalker, he did such a great job, and he put in a lot of his efforts and he worked on Tron Legacy as well. He's the only one on the crew that carried through, you know, from the second one. He had a lot of great ideas, and it was very open, very collaborative. So I love that we would go through big scenes like that, and everybody put in their best, and you know, that's how you raise the bar as well, as you make it a collaborative process, which I love. So that scene when they're falling in the light skimmer, that whole segment has all of it. It has the giant head, then they fall, and then they go into that, and that's a great 10 minutes worth of film that has so many different things going on.
There's some solid choices there, and I think as well it's a bit of a cheat of me asking the question because it's like asking who your favorite child is,
Yeah.
because it's difficult to pick on and to pick, sorry, and then but at the same time, when you're there must be certain days where you're working on something where, as you said, it's like you're getting pushed to sort of raise the bar, and then when you actually crack it, it's probably one of the most satisfying things.
Oh, it's so great when you finally nail it and you're like, that's it, and then we're good. But some of it, it's quick, and some of it takes a long time and grueling hours, and you're like, am I ever going to get this right? Because you're in a very creative process, and it's not so cut and dried. You can't say, oh, if I just turn this on, that'll solve it. It doesn't work. What if we try a little bit of this and try a little of that? And there's like a billion things you could do with like voice processing or sound effects, that you're creating stuff that isn't real. And you're like, well, what's that? Well, no one's really ever heard a light skimmer going across digital water before. Like, what's that supposed to sound like? Right. So you can do anything really, but it has to fit the film and make you feel that it's real. Like, oh, they are on that bike and it's going through whatever, and they're trying to get somewhere fast. So you have certain things that you are grounded to, that you need to come across. It has to have speed, has to have a feel of some sort of bike, or motorcycle or something like that. And it has to be new, has to be something we haven't heard, has to be, electronic, it has to be all these things. So you keep piling all these different elements together and keep trying and trying, and you end up with something. And when you finally get it, oh, it's the best. Everyone's like, yeah, this is great, let's keep it, and then we're good. So then you move on to the next 100,000 things you have to do in the movie. But that's the fun part.
I guess that's another thing, isn't it, where you're thinking, yeah, we cracked that bit. It's like, yeah, we still have 2 hours of film to make to sound. It's like, oh yeah.
It's insane the amount of things that we have to do and come up with, and the detail work that goes on, and most people really have no idea that that's what's going on underneath the hood.
Yeah, 1,000%, especially with, as I said, just even the sound part of it, but then each scene, how much it's layered and the sound, and how, sometimes it's just there and you don't realize it's there until you listen back again and you're like, oh wow, actually you could have somebody shouting from the distance but you don't know it. Or even the sound of, as I said, the bike skimming. What does that sound like? Don't know, but we could do whatever we want in a way.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. The amount of details and decision making that goes on, day by day, minute by minute, and it's crazy. By the time I get home, I'm like, I don't want to decide what's for dinner. I don't care what movie's on or a TV show. I just want to sit and not decide anything, because it's insane. The hours we put in and the time you spend listening and critiquing and, critically listening and adjusting things. And, it's insane, but it's a fun, very unique job. And when people get to come visit and I show them what we do, they're always like, oh, I had no idea. It took me years to get my parents to realize that the orchestra wasn't recorded in the camera. It's separate, and then we do see how. So, and then they got it, and it was all good. But most people don't understand what goes on to build a track like this, and the hours and the creativity that goes into it. But we love it, and that's what we do.
Yeah, exactly. And also it's funny how mentioning about the that not everything's recorded in camera.
Yeah, there's a whole orchestra right over here.
Like, it's like everything's here at once. Ron, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Tron Ares is out now in cinemas, but I'm sure it'll be on VOD soon. So if you go out and listen to Ron and his team's work, thank you again, Ron.
Thanks, and I hope you go see in the theater if you can.
I second that. Thank you very much. You take care, and bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast.